Let's talk about this. So Michelle Yeoh, if you guys know Michelle Yeoh, you saw Everything Everywhere All at Once. She had some comments to say about ageism in Hollywood that I found particularly fascinating. It wouldn't have normally been something I would have covered, but I would have liked to get some unique opinions from someone who saw the movie. And but also
remember, this is the one movie I saw this year, and Brett is like, wow, we're proud of you.
So here's the thing about the comments here. She's actually had a very long and storied career as an action star. Mm-hmm. She was literally called, they called her like the queen of martial arts in Hong Kong cinema. Mm-hmm. And she was one of the few one of the few actresses that Jackie Chan allowed to do her own stunts.
That's amazing.
So she was a Bond girl back in 97, mm-hmm. like in Tomorrow Never Dies. Mm-hmm. Like also an underrated Bond movie. If people here haven't seen Tomorrow Never Dies, it's about an evil media mogul who wants to control the world by controlling the flow of information by owning the media. That is as relevant as anything could possibly be. These also played beautifully by Jonathan Pryce, who's really kind of that's rude. He's awful on Twitter.
Brett walks it right back.
He's awful on Twitter. But here's the thing. So they talk about how it's an increasingly demanding space, but I want to talk about her quote here. So she says, "Everything Everywhere All at Once was such a gratifying experience. I've waited such a long time to receive a script like that because as you get older, the box gets smaller and smaller, and especially for Asian female actors, it's never been an easy ride to start with. I honestly look at younger actresses with such envy because they get an opportunity to try all the different roles, but we only get the opportunity maybe once in a long, long time. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was 22 years ago. With Crazy Rich Asians, suddenly I am the mean mom. Then I was auntie. Then I was the auntie. Then I would receive a script and they say, please play the grandmother. I was like, please don't put me in that box." Here's the thing. I get the feeling of kind of existential dread that comes with getting older. Mm-hmm. But I also think there's a certain lack of perspective here that's being blamed on ageism. There's anti-reality. It's kind of anti-reality to accept that if movies are supposed to depict the real world, which they always strive for authenticity, right? Yeah. You want to both simultaneously strive for authenticity, but then paradoxically play characters that aren't realistic to the real world. Grandmothers aren't normally doing martial arts in movies.
Right.
That's the real world.
Yeah.
Like, does that seem weird to you? I feel like it comes from an area of there's a lack of gratitude. Like, instead of making this topic about, I was so grateful for this experience because it's not what I would normally get to do, but having that opportunity was amazing. It becomes about what you're not getting rather than what you are getting.
I don't know if I pick up on that as much right now in her comment, but I do think there are people who look at the world negatively and they say I'm so glad to get this because there are so many times I've been passed up on in sort of a the world is unfair way. Yeah. I do think it's true that that's the reality of being in a physical business, right? In one where your looks are important and your age factors into things. Yeah. In the same way that she is saying, when I was kind of a young martial arts bombshell, I did different roles, and now that time is changing. There are also plenty of actors and actresses that you can think of who blew up when they were cast as the dad in that sitcom. Yes. Right? And
unless the opposite would be Kevin's dad in Home Alone, because he's literally just Kevin's dad in Home Alone now and everything he's in.
Yeah,
they just call him Kevin's dad.
That's hilarious.
They advertise him as Kevin's dad.
Right. Well, I think there are characters actors who, when they are in their 20s, right, they don't fit the roles then, and as they age, they become castable in this new age set for this new type of character.
You age into certain roles.
Right, and I think for women, it is hard to suddenly go from being I am a Bond girl to being you play the grandmother. That is a hard reality. On the other hand, I would also feel, if she's saying she feels constricted because the grandmothers sit in the background and they don't do much, and at one point she had been a leading star, it must be hard to see your career sort of hit the embers that way. It's not that you're not great, it's just that you aren't what
I would argue those characters usually develop more nuance. As an actor, you should see that as a challenge to bring more to a role that wouldn't have been there in your 20s.
And it just depends, right? Depends on what's in the script, and it depends on what part of the storyline they are in. I think this comment about Everything Everywhere All at Once is really interesting because the character it's just such a weird movie, and the character goes through so many different sort of dimensions of time and reality that you are able to have an older middle-aged mom who's in this scenario who is able to both demonstrate some sort of I think her action background does stand out in that movie, and it's not too much about I don't know. I could understand why this would be great because you get to play both what Hollywood expects you to be, and also you get to test the limits of what kind of scripts they write for that character.
And here's the other quote she says. She says the term, not her quote, but they talk about Hollywood ageism through the decades. The term Hollywood ageism is a familiar one, not because it has been thrown around in volatile outcries by famous actresses over the years, but due to its relevance across fields of varying professions and within society in general. The crippling standards that women have been held to throughout history have subjected them to the male gaze that at one point declared that an unmarried woman beyond the age of 20 is ashamed of her family, while the more modern society looks at women who choose to be alone as an incomplete being with a better half to complete her.
I just feel like
I feel like that's unfair.
I also feel like complaining about ageism in Hollywood is sort of the wrong place, right?
Yeah.
Like
well, that's kind of what I mean. Like,
right. Like,
it makes no sense.
Like we've said, ageism affects all kinds of people in Hollywood, right? Like if you look too young for a role, or if you don't have the dad energy, you could miss a big opportunity too.
Yeah.
If it's just depending on whatever characters you're potentially going out for. I think that if you were to talk about ageism in, I don't know, maybe nursing or some field where like the physical toll that the job takes on your body does preclude you from some type of work, and it is limiting to certain people, I might be more open to that argument. But I think when you link Hollywood ageism to just affecting women who are getting older, you are missing the complexity of casting.
Yeah. Well, also, like, look, crippling standards in the male gaze, it's a profession that is visually aesthetic by nature. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of getting annoyed with women complaining about, first of all, my biggest complaint is like
Brett's getting annoyed with women.
Let
them know.
They embrace it in their 20s. Mm-hmm. That's fine. But embrace it as you get older and understand, like, look, my career is changing. I'm evolving into roles that that I'm right for now, and it feels like there's a lack of gratitude there. The men aren't any different. The men are complaining for different reasons. Don't think I'm going easy on the dudes. Like
and I think we do see a pipeline of men who are getting passed up on. Like maybe they want to be the action hunk, and as they get older,
they age into different roles.
And not just like on screen but off screen. We see a lot of actors who diversify in terms of what industries they're invested in, or they become producers, they branch out their careers. And I'm not saying that maybe women don't do that, but I definitely feel like I hear about it less, right? Like if you are just trying to stay on screen but you're not getting the roles that you like, that's not the deck being stacked against you. That's not you expanding your horizon. There's
actually more than you'd think of. A lot of women are that have got into producing or work with, like, start their own like production companies and stuff like this. Here's the other thing. Like men, in the past, what I've been told is that men age into their roles. So if you're a gangly 20-something dude, the woman is the height of her beauty and is going to get all of the best roles for what she's going to be casted for. The man needs to grow into the role that he needs to become, meaning that 20-year-old woman, that 25-year-old woman, even at the high end, is being cast with 40-year-old dudes. The man is on the upswing, the woman is on the downswing as far as their career trajectory. So the idea is like maybe the men grow into gratitude and the women kind of fall out of gratitude because they're grateful when they're younger, but the perspective isn't there as they age.
Yeah.
Like
I think
does that make sense?
It definitely does. I think in some ways it must be like just frustration that the phone stops ringing, right?
Yeah.
And especially if you're exposed, like if you look at that timeline, right? If women in their 20s, if you make it in Hollywood, which is, there are tons of beautiful women in their 20s who do not jump up suddenly, and then that at 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, somewhere in that range, that is the peak, and it will come down like
very quickly.
I know we referenced her before, but like let's think about Zendaya. Zendaya was a Disney Channel star. She is extremely in demand right now, both because of Euphoria and because of Spider-Man and because she does fashion. It's just all kinds of things, right? But will that be sustained when she's 45? We don't know. Whereas
if she's smart, she'll get into producing and she will start
right.
And then you can cast whoever you want.
You have no idea. Also, but with men, they don't necessarily have the same demands on their time. It is crazy how much it reflects fertility. I'm not trying to be gross, but women's fertility right around 30, it's like that is like
you hit your peak and you have to capitalize
and you have to plan around that, right? Whereas men, you guys can keep going for a while there. And it's the same as true in Hollywood.
Cruise.
It's not ageism, it's the reality of all sorts of factors that make men and women different.
Yeah. Well, look at Tom Cruise. He's in his 60s and even he's like still, he's doing his action scenes. Granted, he's built the capital to be able to do that. Like they said, like he has to fund a lot of the insurance for himself because he's worth
They're like,
too much money.
please don't do that, and he's like, I'm doing it anyway.
Yes, so it's like
I'm thinking about the I don't know his name, but and I didn't really watch the show, but the dad who's got the dark hair on Modern Family.
Yeah,
I have never seen him before in my life, right?
Yeah,
but he at what must be in his 30s or 40s got cast this job. Worked very consistently and is now extremely recognizable. I don't know what he's doing.
Look at Jason Bateman. Jason Bateman came in more into his own again, like in his like with Ozark. He had this really bad movie in like 2013. It used the song "Sail" for the trailer, and that was like what I remembered about it. It was about like school bullying and technology. I forget what it was called. It was really bad.
Yeah.
But like he came into his own when he got to Ozark and met like the dude from Better Call Saul or even or Breaking Bad. And those actors came into their own as they got older because the role demanded it.
Right. And they could not have been those roles at a different age.
Exactly.
I have heard that like basically some women's organizations will argue that like because women are only desirable and cast when they're in their 20s, right, there are fewer stories about older women in their 30s and 40s and whatever, and I fundamentally don't think that's true. I just think that's a problem
with that's a problem with writing. They're not writing interesting stories,
and are the production houses funding them?
Yeah.
But also, number one, if you're an aging actress in Hollywood who sees that problem, how can you intervene? Can you write a script? Can you fund a script? Can you like get behind it? Also, I think that the stories that we tell about older women are interesting, but we often, I think sometimes it's hard not to take it as you're more upset that you are not being cast as like the bombshell. And then we see things like stories about cougars or this reality show about the
MILF Manor.
Yeah, like
MILF Manor.
It's a weird like culture where it's like you guys are being mean to excluding us. Also, we don't really want to be portraying realistic stories for women at these ages because we still want to be seen as like sex symbols.
The other thing is like, it just feels like nobody wants to be held to any standard anymore. And it feels like if the male gaze benefited you when you were younger.
Are you in the chat right now?
Yes, I am. I sometimes they're talking Bryan Cranston from Breaking Bad. But he kind of blew. Or another good example is
Bryan Cranston did have his staple moments like
before
like with Jason Bateman, like
Malcolm in the Middle.
Jason Bateman was Arrested Development.
Brian Chandler from Kyle Chandler from Friday Night Lights. Like he acts regularly in, like he's never the lead, but he's always in everything.
Yeah.
Like he's another example. Like he's the dad. He's a dad forever because he looks like a dad forever.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: you can play the dad forever.
But he probably looks like a pre-dad. It's happening again.
It's a Christmas party again.
I love Christmas. Brett, you should have to tell me a Christmas fact about yourself every time the lights come on.
A Christmas fact?
Yeah.
What would be a Christmas fact?
What was your favorite part of Christmas growing up?
We opening the one Christmas present the night before.
Yeah.
I love that.
Does everybody's family do that? I remember announcing to my parents that this was something that we did, and I think they were like, "What?" But I was like 5.
You guys didn't do that?
We did do it. This gun's aggressive today.
They are.
We did do it. I don't remember, but I remember one of my friends told me they did it, and going home and be like, "We did that too." My parents like having this weird expression, like, "I guess so." Like
I have particularly like as somebody who does err on the nostalgic side, I have my own nostalgic memories about Christmas.
Yeah.
Like certain years. I had my own Nintendo 64 moment. Do you ever seen the video of the kid who goes, Nintendo 64?
No.
In the chat, I guarantee you these guys know about it's a kid who opens he gets a Nintendo 64 for Christmas, and it's the greatest meltdown you've ever seen of anything ever. He just screams Nintendo 64. I had my own version of that.
What was it?
I screamed in I
literally had a Nintendo 64.
I literally got a Nintendo 64. I remember getting the Lion King soundtrack.
Oh my gosh.
And like when I was very, very, very young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember one year, like I think it was the year I announced we could like open one Christmas
in the Skeletor staff.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny because you grew up in He-Man era. Did you guys have you're from Minnesota, White Christmas? Is that pretty normal? Lots of snow?
There's always,
yeah.
There's been maybe 2 Christmases in my life where it wasn't snowing.
Okay, it was like hit or miss for me. There were a lot of them, yes, but every once in a while you wake up and it's like, this is not festive.
Yeah.
Get it together here, Earth.
Well, global warming.
Yeah,
so to me, it just feels like one of these things is like, look.
I feel like they say that about Christmas, like there's no snow for Christmas because of global warming, to like as a latch dish effort to get kids into recycling.
Well, yeah, you got to have the different bins.
Which like you can recycle, that's fine, but like.
Do you
doesn't guarantee you a snow on Christmas?
Do you think this is one of those things as far as ageism in Hollywood that like we did a topic earlier this year? You might have even been on the show. Like anytime there's like a topic about like a study that's being done where like the UK government did a study about ageism in Hollywood, and like why is the government putting money towards this?
Yeah. Also, if the UK government's doing
not Hollywood. Like in like the film industry. Yeah, in their film industry.
Because it'd be really funny if they're doing a study on like America's film center. Like I know it's influential, but like. So that's pointing your fingers a little bit.
But what's funny about it is the UK has far better representation for middle-aged women than America. Like they've got all of their Miss Marple and all of their shows, Vera, all of these shows that are like female. She's a dumpy female detective. That's me. That's a dumpy's not the right word. What would be a good word?
She's a quirky female detective.
What's a good one for? They're a little bit bigger, but
she's frumpy.
She's frumpy. Yes, frumpy female detectives.
It's funny how that like subtle letter difference makes a big difference.
Very big difference. Frumpy, not dumpy.
She's dumpy.
But like they have like that's the thing. Like when they portray moms in the UK on like those shows, they don't look like the moms in like it's not
unrealistic expectations for moms.
It's not Leah Remini in King of Queens. It's just a regular looking mom, right? So I would say it would be actually the ageism and like the expectations were actually less so in the UK.
Well, and I also think. With British television, and I'm happy to be correct on this. I love British television, and I think part of it is that they kind of want things to look more realistic. Like they want
I don't know if it's by definition or if it's just a factor of like what Hollywood has done to our
I think America like puts the pretty filter on too much, but if they don't, like there is that aspirational to American culture where it's like we want to have people on TV that we sort of also want to be like.
What was the show with David Tennant and Jodie Whittaker? Not Graceland,
but Broadchurch.
Broadchurch.
You and I talked about this because I love Broadchurch.
Yeah, that one. I mean, that actually
first
is kind of in
especially.
Yes. After that, it's
second season's solid. First season of Broadchurch is amazing.
There's a show called Shetland. That's a really good detective show where like he's a very normal looking dude, and like there's all sorts of shows. Like Whitechapel is a good like horror-esque crime drama about Jack the Ripper, about these guys who are like looking for a Jack the Ripper copycat in the first season, and then it becomes kind of an anthology per season.
It makes me think of, I never finished the whole thing, but Derby Girls, like this story about like these teenagers and like that part of Ireland, like they all look relatively normal.
Yeah,
like you know, their skin's a little more flawless maybe, but like for the most part, there are a variety of looks and they look relatively normal, even if the characters, the characteristics that they play are sort of exaggerated.
Even David Tennant is kind of a normal looking dude.
We had this conversation about Bill Hader, which I was like, he is both handsome and also normal. looking.
Tall, dark, and normal.
How do you describe Bill Hader? But like, if you cast more people like that, I feel like in some ways you would make television more viable. Does that make sense?
A good example is Rainn Wilson, is a very normal looking guy.
Well,
who's
all
still
of The Office. The Office has a lot of very normal looking people who like, as the show goes on, become more familiar to you or whatever else.
Steve Carell is kind of like he looks normal, but if you do his hair different, he looks more like a traditional Hollywood dude.
Yeah,
right?
there was some like
so
photo.
Ageism happens in all respects, right? Yeah. It's just the roles are different for men and
women.
I
just think the term Hollywood ageism is being co-opted a little bit here, and I'm not sure if this actress from Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Michelle Yeoh's great.
She's great, and I think that like she is touching on some interesting points, and I would hate for her sentiments, which is like, yeah, it was more fun when I could like play a lot of different roles, and now I'm getting limited a little bit. Like, yeah, I could understand how that's disappointing. Like, but let's not make this a feminist issue.
Also, the other thing here is I pulled up her IMDb and I wanted to look back at her career, and I was like, this is just since 2016 the work she's done. So she's working consistently all the time, and these are big budget projects, right? We're talking about Minions: Rise of Gru. We're talking about Everything Everywhere. Well, I guess Everything Everywhere All at Once wasn't a big budget, but it became a big deal in the culture. Shang-Chi, she's part of Star Trek Discovery. You know, sucks to be her, but she loves Star Trek, but you know, not many people want to actually be on Star Trek Discovery, but she's working consistently, and Crazy Rich Asians was another cultural kind of landmark.
Yeah, it was a huge
in our
deal.
Society. So,
and in some ways, like I know she mentions
it's like she's getting all these opportunities to do like growth for the community and growth for the industry, but she's not actually happy about it.
I don't know. I'm reading it not as negatively as maybe you are, and I'm not saying that I'm right or you're right, but I think there must be some chagrin, right? When you used to be able to be like the
Also,
fun, cool person, and now you feel limited.
The interviewers usually tee these questions up to make the actors look worse than they are.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like she came in there and was like, I want to talk about this. Likely it's T-balled up on a question.
Yeah,
that
well, and
becomes a
even the
thing.
language, right? Like, do we think that this actress used the term Hollywood ageism, or do you think the interviewer was like, how do you think Hollywood
Ageism in Hollywood
has limited your career, which once used to be big, but now, like, calm down, team.
I try to give the, probably more than other people in this space, I try to give, like, yesterday I was like, I have no problem with nepotism in Hollywood, but it wasn't like that I have no problem with nepotism in Hollywood. My point was that I like to see people do good and succeed. Mm-hmm. So when an actor who comes from a famous parent, like a background of a parent that's famous, I like to see them rise to the occasion and do well. I don't think that that's a bad thing to want to see them do well.
And with nepotism, I don't think people who want to be in this industry should be somehow like barred because their parents were already successful in it. But I feel like nepotism is hard because yes, you come in with some advantages, you get some connections. On the other hand, if you do the work, like you capitalize on those opportunities, like that's reasonable. It's the nepotism babies who come in and like don't do well and then expect praise. That's what I would get frustrated with.
But then you get Chet Hanks, who's awesome and still he's still acting.
You told me this yesterday. It blew my mind. First off, because I didn't think he was the actor. I thought his
son is the actor, or his brother's the actor.
His brother was the actor.
Colin Hanks acts more, but Chet Hanks is still acting. He was in Atlanta this year, and he was in a bunch of episodes of Empire.
He just never stops working. That guy.
He's like the other day. He's got his Lamborghini now. He's like, I couldn't afford this when I was acting. He's like, because his business is successful now, so good for him.
But is he one of those people who just buys a really fancy car to be like, look, my business is succeeding, and then he lives out of his car to like make it look?
No, because he's always posting videos from his like Miami penthouse. Like I get the feeling that the Miami
penthouse.
I get the feeling that the Miami penthouse maybe was like dad co-signed on that, but like it's
like an Airbnb he's renting.
There's nothing wrong with being proud of, because the point is like he goes, this is what happens when you work hard.
Yeah,
like, you can accomplish
things. Lot of millennials, most millennials have had parental assistance in buying a house. He would just make it more relatable.
Exactly. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.